Okay, so we are starting at the new Mishnah on the bottom of Ayin Amid Beis. So, Kol HaZevachim shenisarvu b'chatos hameisais. If a good carbon, Barish brought a good carbon, but it gets mixed up with a chatas that has to die. Now, there are 5 chatos, 5 sin offerings that have to die. It's halacha l'Moshe Misinai. I'm not going to tell you all 5. I'm going to give you an example. If somebody, let's say Chatzkel, separated a chatas, and Chatzkel died, so you can't bring it because ain't kapara lachamisa. That chatas has to die. Or another example is if a chatas, which is a female, gives birth before it's offered on the mizbeach. So its child, it's nobody's chatas, can't bring a chatas if somebody didn't sin, so that child has to die. So Beresh's carbon gets mixed up with a chatas that has to die. Now you can't be mavatal a live animal. A live animal is a barrier. So kol hazvachim shenisarvu b'chatos hameisas. Or if it gets mixed up, let's say Beresh has a carbon that's a shar. Big carbon. Beresh is a generous guy. Big carbon. And it gets mixed up with a shar niskel, a shar that gored somebody and killed him in front of 2 witnesses. So it has to be put to death. Afilu achas beribu, which the Gemara is going to explain means even if one of these chatas gets mixed up with 10,000 of Beresh's karbanas, all of them have to die. Yomusu kulam. There's nothing you could do. This is a disaster. But what happens if Beresh's carbon, we're going to learn like Rashi, 1 Beresh's carbon gets mixed up with a carbon that's invalidated with something, an animal that's invalidated on the Mizbeach. It doesn't have to die, but it's invalidated on the Mizbeach. Let's say it gets mixed up with shar shenev d'bay aveira, with a shar that an aveira was done with. Now many take out the word ay over here, because there should be a colon here, because now the Mishnah is going to give examples of what aveira was done. So nisarvu b'shar shenevdu b'aveira, it gets mixed up with a shar that an aveira was done with, such as shehemes es ha'adam al piyei echad. It gored somebody with only 1 witness. Now, if it goes somebody with 1 witness, we don't put it to death, because we say kamisas habaylim kach misas hashar. The shar could only be put to death if it's 2 witnesses. But since it gored someone and killed someone, it's disqualified from the mizbeach. Oi al pi habalim. If the owners testify that it killed, again, it's not put to death. V'roveya, if Beresh's animal gets mixed up with an animal that was an active participant in bestiality, or Venirva, an animal that was the receiver of bestiality, V'muksa, an animal that was set aside as sacrifice for Avodah Zarah, or V'nevad, an animal that was worshipped, Be'esnan, an animal that was used for pay to a harlot, or Mechir, or an animal that was in exchange for a dog. All of these animals are forbidden on the Mizbeach. And Beresh's carbon got mixed up with one of these animals. Or Bekloyim. Beresh's animal gets mixed up with a cross between a goat and a sheep. Now you can't tell, but you know that one of the animals is a hybrid. Hybrid is disqualified from the Mizbeach. Or with Treifa, or that it has a fatal flaw. But you knew the animal that had a fatal flaw. It fell off the roof, but you couldn't tell. It got mixed up with Beresh's carbon. Or b'yotzei daifin, or an animal born with a cesarean section. An animal born with a cesarean section is not allowed to be put on the mizbeach because it says ki yivoled. So what do? Here you have beresh's carbon. Now remember, beresh, you can't redeem it because when it's a tumim, when it's unblemished, you can't redeem it. So what you have to do is yiru ad sheyistavu. You have to let it pasture until they get a mum. Once it gets a mum, now you could redeem it. So v'yimachru, you sell the two animals, and one of them is beresh's carbon, but we don't know which one. He can't shortchange it. So you bring from the money of the more expensive animal what beresh's carbon was. If the beresh's carbon was a shlamim, was an ayla, v'yimachru v'yavi b'dmei hayafa shebehem may oisei hamin, from that type. In other words, if it was a sheep, so you bring whichever one was worth more, you bring that value a shlamim, or a, it says samin over here, it doesn't mean which type of animal, but which type of offering. It was a shlamim, it was an ayla. Now what happens in this case? Nis'arvu b'chulin tamimim. This is interesting. Beresh separated a shlamim, a peace offering. A nice, beautiful, unblemished sheep for a shlamim. He wanted to bring a matana to Hashem. It gets mixed up with an unblemished sheep of chulin. So here we have a simple solution. Here we find out that Gedalia, so grateful for his good news, separated a shlamim. And not separate, but pledged a shlamim. So what we do is we sell one of the animals to Gedalia. And then we bring both animals as a shlamim, and the Kayin just says whichever one was Beresh should be for Beresh, and the other one should be for Gedalia. You don't have to wait for a mum. Let's see it inside. Nis'arvu b'chulin tamimim, if it gets mixed up with an unblemished chulin, yimachru achulin l'tzorchei oisei amin. You sell the one that is the chulin. We don't know which one it is, but we sell the one in the batch to Gedalia because he already has to bring a shlamim. What happens if kachim b'kachim min b'mina? Here, Gedalia already separated a shlamim, and Beresh separated a shlamim, and the two karbanos get mixed up. So that's no problem. Zeh yikav l'shem mishahu, v'zeh yikav l'shem mishahu. The kayin, remember we said that by kavana, by kayin, less is more. So what we do is the kayin says whichever is Beresh's, and whichever is Gedalia's is Gedalia's. This is a little bit more grim. Kachim b'kachim. You know where we are, or you're having problems finding us? Yeah, good. Kachim. If Gedalia has an oila and Beresh has a shlamim, and they get mixed up together. Now what do we do? Kachim min b'she'enai mina. Here, it seems to be that not seems to be. It's obvious that you can't say whichever one is whichever one's, because the oila has to be completely burnt up. The shlamim, we know that the chaz of a shoik goes to the kayin, the meat go to the bailam, and we don't know which one is which. So that we don't know what to do. And here, they're tmimim, so you can't redeem them. So here, you don't have a choice. Yiru achi yistavu. You leave it out to pasture until it gets a mum. And by the way, people that learn kachim and learn shas, they say this and they don't really chap what this means. This is a disaster for a rancher. This is a disaster. It means you have to keep this animal in a penned up area. They can't do any work with it because it's kachim. And they have to let it run around until it bangs itself up. And they have to feed it and take care of it until this happens. It could be years till this happens. So this is a disaster. It sounds...
Financial loss.
Yeah, a big financial loss.
Could they cause the...
No, they're not allowed to. You're not allowed to be garim a mum to kachim.
Can't put like a little meat...
No, you can't. Not only that, you can't put... You'll say that you put wood in the way, it should trip. Can't do anything like that.
No tricks.
No.
Even if it comes in your house, right? We had mentioned that before.
Well, no, you're not going to have it in your house.
Or around you, if it gets in the way, it gets in the way. Right?
Yeah,
You can't even interrupt.
you see, how do I know this? It's a practical thing. You don't think of it. But today we have to do it. What we do with a bechar, that we shouldn't have a problem with bechar, is we sell a fraction of it to a guy. That's what we do with bechar, that we shouldn't have a problem of kedushas bechar. So I happen to have somebody in my shul whose son is in the Midwest. He's a rancher. And one time they forgot to sell it to a guy. And he had to be yiru achi yistavu. He said it cost him thousands upon thousands of dollars to make a place for it, and we don't realize it. But anyway, so this is Nebuch, what happened to Berish and Gedalia. They weren't careful with their karbanas, and their karbanas got mixed up. And now we don't know which one is Berish's Shlamim and which one is Gedalia's Eilah. So Yiru Achi Yistavu, we have to leave it to pasture until it gets a mum. Now, after they redeem it, you can't say, okay, we'll take the money and we'll cut it in half and buy a shloimim and an eilah. You can't do that. Because one of the animals was better than the other animal. And whoever was better has to bring a better carbon. But we don't know which one's better. We forgot. So let's say, for example, one animal was worth $250, and the other animal was worth, I'm going to give you a different example. One animal was worth $100, and the other animal was worth $200. Now, when they both get a mum, we redeem it. Berish has to bring a shlamim worth $200, and Gedalia has to bring a shlamim worth $200. Now somebody's losing their money, and the money comes from their own pocket. But each one can't risk that they're bringing the cheaper animal. You have to bring the value of the better one for the shlamim, and the cost of it, they have to make up the loss. Now we have a different problem. There's a din that bechor and meiser behema can't be redeemed. It says lo yigoel. So an animal that was born as a bechor, or an animal that was the 10th out of the corral can't be redeemed. So, what happens this is an interesting thing. What happens, and here we're going to learn that I'm going to give you a dramatic case. Let's say that Berish has an Oila, and Gedalia has a Bechor. Now you just can't offer them up straight, because of course an Oila is a completely different procedure than a Bechor. The Oila has to be completely burnt on the Mizbeach. Right? The Bechor, only parts of it go on the Mizbeach. So the first thing we have to do is we have to do something about the animal in the mix. That was we have to do something because when they're a tamim and they're unblemished, we can't do anything with it. So here again, Yiruachi Yistavu. Here again, we let them both pasture until they both get a mum. Now, we don't have the option to redeem them. We don't have the option to redeem them because well, what are we going to do? We're going to redeem whichever one in the mix is the Oila. But we can't redeem the Bechor, because the Bechor can't be redeemed. So we redeem the Oila in the mix, and the Bechor we treat as a Balmum, as an unblemished Bechor, or an unblemished Meiser, as a blemished Bechor, or blemished Meiser. Now, a blemished Bechor and a blemished Meiser, you could eat, but it has restrictions. You're not allowed to slaughter it in a slaughterhouse. You're not allowed to sell it in the market. You're not allowed to weigh it on the scale. It has restrictions. So after we redeem the Ola in the mix, we can't redeem the Meiser or the Bechor. We have to eat them all with the restrictions of Bechor and Meiser. And that's what it says, V'ya'oichlu k'Bechor k'Meiser. Hakol yechaylen lihis arev. You could always have cases of karbonos getting mixed up, chutz min achatas va'oshem, except for a sin offering and a guilt offering, because they're always brought from different types of animals, and they could never get mixed up. Now, if you remember in the beginning of the Mishnah, it said, if a Berish had a carbon, and it got mixed up with a chatas. So if you read the Mishnah straight, it says, even if it got mixed up with 1,000 chatois. So it says, what do you mean? Ma'afilu. Hachikama, no. Kol ha-zvachim shenisarvu bahen chatois ha-mesois oishar ha-niskel. Even if one chatas that's supposed to die because its owner died, or it's a child of a chatas, or an exchange of a chatas, or one shar niskel got mixed up in 1,000 of beresh's karbanos, afilu echad beribo yamusu kulam. Says the Gemara, this is not new to us. Tanina chadazimna, we already learned this before. Kola asurim legabi mizbeach, it's a Mishnah in Tmura. Kola asurim legabi mizbeach, anything that's asur to the mizbeach, oisurin b'kol shehein. It asks the mixture, even if it's one in many. And what is it talking about? Haraveya v'anirva. So even if one animal that has bestiality, or one animal that was passive bestiality, active bestiality, passive, gets mixed up in even 100 good animals, they're all disqualified from the Mizbeach. So we already learned this idea. And he said it's necessary. The ima hasam havamina hanimili legvoya. That's if it's because it's only forbidden to be used on the Mizbeach. But there is an eitzah to redeem them, and then to use them, it doesn't go to waste. But over here, where if a chatas that's supposed to die or a shar niskel gets mixed up in 1,000 animals, they all have to die. Maybe we would be more lenient. The imehacha, and if it's taught us the case in Tmura, havamina hanihu isur hanoninu. That's only because the case in Tmura, it's referring to the first part. And if it says over here in our case, where it gets mixed up with the chatois hamesis and the shar niskel, that the whole mixture has to die, because these are forbidden for benefit. You're not only not allowed to eat it, but it's forbidden for benefit. Aval hani, but for example, the rovea and the nirva, they're just disqualified for the mizbeach. They're not forbidden to benefit from, and therefore, emaloi, I might think it doesn't cause the whole mixture to be forbidden. Tzrichei. Says the Gemara, but we learned those that are not asbana in the later case in our Mishnah. What do we need the Mishnah in Tmura for? The lavi siranonenu hatanile. Says the Gemara. It teaches us. It teaches us the exchange of the dog, the pay for the harlot. These aren't asbana. They're just forbidden for the mizbeach. And still it says it causes the mixture to be aser. Says the Gemara, well, and here we got to be careful with the girsa over here. Says the Gemara, Mikatani, does it say how many it should be, how many would cause it to be aser? Maybe it's only usher if it gets mixed one with one. Or, but if there's a majority, maybe it neutralizes it. In Tmura, it says over there that kol ha'asurin legabim mizbeach oisun b'kol shehein. So even if it's one animal of bestiality or one animal of a Caesarean section, it asks many animals, or one esnan zaina. Says the Gemara, okay, so then why doesn't it shouldn't have to say the case in Tmura, and let it just say, says the Gemara, v'nisnei ha v'loi boi ha. So asks the Gemara, let it say only that one in Tmura, where it says that the Ravea and the Nirva asks even if it's one in many, and then we wouldn't need our Mishnah. Why do we need to say the latter part of our Mishnah? Says the Gemara, we need a latter part of our Mishnah because takanta itzrichalei. Our Mishnah tells us the eitzah, what to do. If one gets mixed up with others, so the Mishnah tells us we have to let it go and pasture until it gets a mum and redeem it. Our Mishnah gives us the eitzah. The Mishnah in Tmura doesn't give us the eitzah of what to do. Okay, we'll stop over here. We did the Mishnah Yomis already. I just want to welcome in everybody because I didn't do that. So we will welcome Mel and Irving and Yaakov Warman and Saba and Yitzi Fuchs and the one and only Mark Frankel, Shimon Klein, and the only Eddie Chazan, Shalom Fogel, and A.B. Spry, and Dr. Guy, and Reuven Pollack, and Shlomi Schmidt, and Barry Cement, and Avigdor, and Michal, and Rabbi Kranz, and Dr. Yudel, and Nachman, and Shelley, and Yitzi Muller, Naftali Jablin, Ilya Shutman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Eba Arbach, Yeshua Shmuel, Eisenberg, Daniel Rosenberg, and David Helf got here in the shul, Rebel Yafi, Reuven Shanet, Michal Avram, Chaim Kramer, Gedalia Engel, Berish Gesseman, and again, we're looking for a sponsor for Wednesday night shares, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a wonderful evening.